Now we're going to move forward and we're going to hear from the defense and see what they have to say. I can imagine the defense is going to take a little bit longer than the prosecution did. Here we go.
All right, defense. Your Honor, just a moment to switch to. Please the court, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for the patience that you've given us and the sacrifice of your time. This is an extremely hard decision. It might be the most grave and serious thing that you consider, deciding the guilt or innocence of someone charged with capital murder. Taylor McIntyre is not guilty. He's not guilty of capital murder. He's not guilty of murder. He's not guilty of manslaughter. And the reason for that is very simple. If you're going to charge someone with that kind of an offense, if you're going to take their liberty away from them, then you have to do it right. You have to do the work. And as this case clearly demonstrates, the work wasn't done. The investigation was faulty, it was incomplete, and by and large, I think it could be summarized as the detective looking at it all and going, good enough. It's not good enough, and you all need to insist on more. If you recall the testimony of Detective Juarez and my cross-examination of him, I think I've given you a clear roadmap about what this case is about and what it isn't about. We all understand that there's a pool of physical evidence and there is testimony conflicting from different innocent bystanders. That information is not enough to convict anyone of a crime. None of the people that were in that car could be convicted on the physical evidence alone that was provided. And everything else that flows from this is the bought and paid for testimony of the accomplice witness, Joanna Reyes. And there is not sufficient corroboration. The law prevents you from convicting Mr. McIntyre solely on the testimony of that accomplice.
That's a good point.
Let's talk about the physical evidence.
Taking shots at
We know that there's a 9mm shell casing found outside of the Chick-fil-A. We know that we have a dead body who died from a gunshot wound. We don't have a bullet. At the very basic core fact, the state can't actually demonstrate that that 9mm shell casing and the death are connected. We have gunshot residue on the deceased's hands. We do know that a 9mm handgun was seized off of Jalen Bell in Dallas a few weeks after the shooting. We have a black four-door Kia with a shattered windshield. We have some grainy surveillance footage from the Chick-fil-A and from El Potosino restaurant that doesn't identify anyone, that by itself would not be able to give you any indication of who those people were. We have the discarded cell phone of the deceased. We have fingerprints from Jeremiah Rodriguez. We have fingerprints from Jalen Bell. That blue iPhone that the prosecutor spoke of. A photograph of Mr. McIntyre and Joanna Reyes. And a letter addressed to Mr. McIntyre. So dirty laundry, toothbrushes. We see very significantly a .380 auto bullet, a live round in the front passenger seat, the seat that they insist Mr. McIntyre was sitting in based upon nothing other than the bare word of Joanna Reyes. But nevertheless, a .380 auto round, a bullet that you know could not have been fired from a 9mm. We have a condom in the back seat.
So what happened?
A wallet, broken sunglasses, a necklace pendant, straightened out in the El Potosino parking lot, a broken SD card. We have these innocent bystanders. And yes, it's normal that people going about their daily lives aren't going to give detailed accounts of that, but don't accept that as some kind of an apology for the state's shoddy investigation. That's not how you should interpret that. Yes, it's normal that innocent bystanders are going to give conflicting accounts, and so that evidence has to be weighed less than it would if someone was able to give a definitive account. You have no eyewitness identification of Mr. McIntyre. You have no eyewitness identification from any of those people of any of the participants in the car.
All right, so he's taking the he wasn't there route. Really? What do y'all think about this? I don't know. The first witness we heard, she did say, "Oh, they were brown." They're all brown. No one really did specifically identify him other than, obviously, Miss Reyes, right? So, I don't know, man.
And their accounts differ. We have people saying that all of the members were Hispanic. We have people saying that the man was African American. That doesn't do you a whole lot of good. There are 2 African American people in that car. They conflict about how many shots were fired. How many guns did they see?
That's true.
What exactly was the person doing with the gun? They largely do agree on one important fact, which is that Mark jumped on the hood of that car after he was ejected from it and stomped on the windshield. But let's talk about what you don't have. Each of these things is something that is very important for you to be asking, why don't I have it? And what would it have told me that might have informed my opinion one way or the other? Is that SD card that they found in the parking lot even compatible with a digital camera? Is it compatible with the kind of digital camera they say Mark had? You don't know. We have no idea. What was on the SD card? You don't know. Fingerprints of Tamor McIntyre? You don't have any. None. Any reliable witness who can identify Tamor McIntyre, not even the two women going to the massage parlor that day, are able to give a definitive identification of Mr. McIntyre or anybody else that got into that car. An accounting of where the car was in between the time it departed Chick-fil-A and the time it parks at El Potosino. I mean, if we're going to really latch on to this idea that Joanna Reyes says that Tamor was in the front seat and we see somebody getting out of the front seat, aha. Well, okay, we don't know that that's Tamor McIntyre getting out of the front seat, and I don't know what they were doing between the time period that we're in the Chick-fil-A and we parked at the restaurant. They could have stopped to buy cigarettes. They could have stopped and decided to do a Chinese fire drill for some reason. You have no idea, and they don't either. They're asking you to just jump over that. And you're not supposed to be making those kinds of elisions in your logic. You're not supposed to be making those kinds of jumps. That is not common sense. That is not upholding your duty. That is taking their word for it. And that's not what you're allowed to do in a criminal trial. You never get to take their word for it. Their burden of proof prevents it. His presumption of innocence prevents it. You don't have any GPS data from any of these phones. You don't have any cell tower location data. We have warrants showing who called who. Okay, great. Tamor McIntyre and Joanna Reyes were dating. They called each other. That's not a smoking gun of anything. But that cell tower data could have also told you where they were and when they were there, and you don't have it. We don't have a dump of Mark's cell phone. We don't know anything that's on there. We don't have any idea what their communications actually were. We don't have a dump of Joanna Reyes' cell phone. We have no idea where her communications were. She says somebody broke it up in Dallas. We have to take her word for that. We have no corroboration of what Joanna Reyes did at any point in time after we last see her on that El Potosino video, and we only know it's her on the video because she says it's her. We don't have any examples of Mark's work as a photographer. This claim that it's his passion, this claim that that's his thing, this claim that that was his reason for being in that car, they're asking you to take their word for that. There's no proof of it.
Interesting.
We don't have a single example of this man being a photographer. We don't have a digital camera, the subject of this supposed robbery, or anything connected with the digital camera.
I mean,
we don't have a backpack.
He's kind of cooking. I don't know.
I apologize. When it comes to the gun, we have problems there too. You heard testimony that you could do additional GSR work on the hands of Mark Saldivar to try and determine whether or not there might be additional elements besides lead, barium, and antimony that might give you a key as to what kind of ammunition was used or what gun was fired. That analysis wasn't done. You heard testimony from a firearms expert saying that it couldn't have been the gun. But fundamentally, he admitted at the end of the day, it's a subjective science. It's the human eye that's at work here. And he's basing it off of, mostly, the indentations on that primer. And while he can say that the breech face precludes it from being the same thing, he didn't take the gun apart. So he's speaking about generally what a Smith & Wesson looks like. And he can't speak to the condition of the gun. It's been sitting in evidence for years, 7 years, in 2 different property rooms. And no one came here to talk about whether those rooms are climate controlled, to talk about whether they have an armorer that comes in and cleans the guns. Nothing. And he acknowledged that corrosion can affect how the primer gets indented when it's fired. You have nothing to analyze on those gun magazines, 2 of which are also .380 auto, not associated with that shell casing. And 1 is a 9mm. We don't have fingerprints on those magazines. We don't have anything to tell us whether they're significant or whether they're not. Except we do know that there were a lot of guns in that car. We know that the perimeter of the crime scene didn't include the access road, which seems to me to be a problem when we don't know how many shots were fired. Because maybe there are more shell casings. There's no way to say one way or the other. This is really important. We have no search of Jeremiah Rodriguez's home. I'm sorry, but their only witness, the accomplice in this case, says that everybody left that parking lot and went to Jeremiah's house. if we're trying to find proof that someone committed a capital murder by robbing somebody else, don't you think we should search the house that they all ran away to afterwards to see if we might find something? Nothing. You didn't hear from Jeremiah Rodriguez. You didn't hear from Jeremiah Rodriguez's family. You heard nothing about that aspect of the case, which would be the best place to find something that might corroborate anything that Joanna Reyes said. They didn't give it to you. This is a homicide investigation. It's a capital murder investigation. A police officer doesn't get a warrant for a critical scene in the case. There's no search of Joanna Reyes' house, her parents' house. She says that she went to Dallas by the Greyhound bus station. You don't have any footage of her leaving. You don't have any records that she ever bought a ticket. Do we even know that she went to Dallas? There's nothing to prove that Joanna ever spoke to Tamar McIntyre again after the 23rd of April, 2017. They have some call logs that show Joanna tried to call him. But that doesn't seem very consistent with what Joanna tries to claim, which is that Tamar was an aggressive and possessive person. Very significantly, you don't have DNA, and you know that they could have tried to get it. They swabbed Mr. McIntyre's cheek, but they decided that it wasn't necessary. They didn't care what the results were. That's inexcusable. One of the witnesses in this case, Jeremiah Rodriguez, lied to the detective for a full interview about there being a sixth person in the car named John. And we don't have DNA to try and determine who's telling the truth and who's not. We're just going to let his gut steer us in whatever direction it goes. Oh, I think you're lying to me. We don't have DNA on the .380 auto bullet. We don't have DNA or fingerprints on the gun magazines. We don't have fingerprints or DNA on the condom. We don't have any testimony from the lead evidence technician, Kim Wong, who did all of the barcoding from the crime scene at the Chick-fil-A to know whether or not the evidence is all accounted for, correctly labeled, and that it was even available to these laboratory analysts to look at. And you know that mistakes were made because they, for years, had a 9mm shell casing labeled as a 40 cal. You don't have any testimony from Jeremiah. You have nothing from Jalen Bell that was said back then or now. Just a complete mystery. 2 weeks of trial. All of those witnesses. This stack of physical evidence here in front of you. What do you have? Tamar McIntyre was in the car at some point. Was he there on that day? Maybe. Maybe not.
Saying they're not there.
When was he last there? They can't tell you. Did he have a gun? They can't tell you. Did he shoot a gun? They can't tell you. Did Mark start this fight? They can't tell you. Was there a fight? They can't tell you. They can't tell you a single thing about what happened inside of that car at all from any of the evidence that's piled in here. Now, their theory, as you know, rises and falls entirely on the testimony of Joanna Reyes.
It's true.
Proving that Tamar McIntyre was in that car is not enough to convict him of anything. Mere presence at the scene of a crime is not enough. The jury instructions tell you that explicitly. As a party, as the primary actor, doesn't matter. Mere presence is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the law. Joanna Reyes is lying. You know she's lying for several reasons. First, Detective Juarez knows she's lying. Everyone knows she's lying. The state bought and paid for that testimony at an extremely high price. Joanna Reyes was an adult when this crime occurred. She is facing life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty for a capital murder.
That's true.
And rather than facing those consequences, the state offered her a plea to tampering with evidence with deferred adjudication, meaning that she'll never have a felony conviction for this offense.
Crazy.
She'll be eligible to have it non-disclosed, meaning that when she goes out there to apply for a job or get an apartment or do anything, this can be ignored. Won't be on the radar screen of people out there in the free world. And even though it's a 10-year term, the terms of the agreement allow for them to knock off time as things progress, so long as she's truthful. But we all know what that means. There's only one arbiter of whether she's truthful, right? They're not looking at your verdict to decide whether she's truthful. Don't worry, you're not deciding whether Joanna Reyes gets a better outcome or not. The only thing that decides whether she's truthful is what they think. The ones who are calling her to testify. That's not an acceptable way to run a justice system. Compensating people with their freedom to obtain the critical information they need when none of the physical evidence supports it is not a way to run a justice system. Her inconsistencies in her testimony are too many to recall. I don't know if I'm going to be able to list all of them. I know for certain that while Joanna maintained for a long time that this was all Tamor's idea, and that Tamor was the one talking to Mark on the messaging system, and this was what Tamor wanted, and it wasn't me, you heard her on the stand acknowledge that after lying and minimizing that forever and ever and ever, she finally has decided that she can say, all right, well, he contacted me first on Instagram, and he solicited me for nude photographs, and I blocked him. And then I later changed my account, and we got in contact again. And then we talked about this photo shoot, and he wanted it to be in lingerie. This is all about her career as a stripper. There is no evidence that this is actually anything that Mr. McIntyre wanted. There's no evidence that Mr. McIntyre was even aware that she was communicating with him. You have no way of knowing that other than her claim. A claim that she has every incentive in the world to say, irrespective of whether it's true. The idea that the photo shoot was rescheduled as to called off, I think, is an interesting thing. You heard testimony. Mark didn't have any other appointments. And the testimony was that he was basically saying, we're not going to do the photo shoot, but give me a ride to North Star Mall, which is where we said we'd do the photo shoot to begin with. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. She's hiding something there. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you what it is, but it's not my job to. They have the burden of proof here. And at its core, nothing corroborates her claims. If you want to tell a policeman that despite what it looks like, you are not the getaway driver or the perpetrator or involved in an armed robbery and a death that occurred in the Chick-fil-A parking lot, that it really was all a big misunderstanding, which is what you tried to do desperately for a very long time, you would show the detective your communications with the deceased to clear all of that up. And you would explain how that all develops on. We don't have any of that. She didn't give you that corroboration.
Wow.
And that malarkey about someone broke my phone, they have nothing to back that up either.
He's cooking.
We also know she's full of it because, come on, I thought he was 18. Look at the photographs. No one would mistake that child for an 18-year-old man. He's a 16-year-old boy, and she knew it.
Dang. Yo. He's summarizing this perfectly. Again, y'all mentioned in the comments, I wish we would have heard more of this during the trial, but oh my God. Yo, he's cooking Miss Reyes right now. Jeez.
She was afraid. She had court the next day. There are bailiffs in every courtroom in America. Policemen. Everywhere. If she was afraid that she was going to have something happen to her because of what she saw, ample opportunity existed. She spoke to the detective, in this case, on the telephone. She gave her fingerprints and her ID when she went to go dance up in Dallas. She had her father take her to the bus station, passing up opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. You have to first believe the accomplice before you even go into this question. You don't get there. I don't think anybody can get there. And then, even if you do believe her, you still have to have independent corroboration that connects Tamor not to the scene of the crime, not to the car, but to the commission of the offense. You have nothing. Not a shred of evidence supports that. Zero. Nothing corroborates her story. The justice system in America depends upon the state having to meet an exceedingly high burden. It should be extremely hard to put someone away for capital murder or manslaughter. They haven't given you that. Demand more. Expect more. It is okay to have your doubts, and it is okay to rely on those doubts. It is your duty to expect them to work to dispel them, and they haven't. And lastly, I just want to say, we're counting on you. Tamor needs your help. If y'all don't hold them to their burden, we're going to have a miscarriage of justice today. No one wants that. I count on you to do your duty. I know that you will return a verdict of not guilty as to all of the theories the state has put forward. Thank you. Mr. Golson.
Wow. Wow. I'm shocked. I knew they were going to go this route, but John, shout out to John, absolutely demolished Mrs. Reyes' testimony, as he did during court proceedings. And I think that's where they spend a lot of their energy, because as we mentioned here, and as I said before, that was going to be the key to this entire thing, because there were so many inconsistencies from witnesses. Oh yeah, I saw them fighting. Oh, this person was grabbing the gun. Oh, there was a a girl in the front and she was brown. They were all brown. I don't know what they were. But Miss Reyes comes up. Someone who could be held liable for all of this. Someone who's in a very difficult situation right now. Someone who was messing with a minor. I don't know. Y'all let me know what you think about this closing arguments. Cooking. Absolutely amazing. Let me know what you think in the comments in the chat.